Welcome everyone, I hope you're having a very wonderful day, and welcome to my guide for Caribou for the Yukon. Before we begin, I want to quickly break down how today's video is going to go. So our first section will be their hotspots and locations. Then we're going to move on to weapon recommendations, and then end today's video with the animal profile, which is a custom map, time zones, ammo chart, and more. Everything you need to make your hunting life 10 times easier. So let's get right into it with their drinking time. These guys drink between 4 to 8 in the morning, so you'll have a few hours of daylight and a few hours of night there if you're trying to hunt these guys. You're going to want to hunt for the last 2 hours in their time zones. That's just my personal recommendation. So you're going to have a little bit of a morning sunrise there, just a little darkness, but then you'll have some bright daytime like you guys can see right here. So right now we're actually walking up to their hotspot, and as we do so, I want to quickly go over all the Caribou locations on the Yukon, just so you guys can see where they like to reside. I'm also going to talk about a few of the other hotspots for these guys, so let's do that really quick. We're going to crouch because we're actually going to be there hopefully by time I'm done talking about everything. So let's start with the largest territory for these caribou. This entire lake here, river, whatever you want to call it, on the right hand side is pretty much populated all by caribou on all sides, left and right. Everywhere you see little dots of water over here, you will have caribou, including this place right here, which you guys can see we have a zone there. And then like down here as well, which I didn't have any, but I do believe they can go down there. And then you have like all these little dots down here as well. So we got one right there. Moving off over here, right below this giant river stretch here, we do also have 4 lakes. Now these lakes actually should be considered hotspots, but I did not consider them because they're kind of sparse in between. We have some solos, we have some single groups, so that's why I marked those as common spots. But if we come up here into the northern section here, we have about a trio of lakes. Now we're going to basically just cover these real quick. None of these will have caribou, but these 3 up here will. So we should have some caribou zones somewhere in here. We have one right there. We have one there, and then we should have some right there as well. But the other lakes down below, these 3, will not have caribou zones whatsoever. One big hotspot for the caribou is this entire little marsh area. Basically, everywhere you go, you're going to bump into some caribou. At least in the northern section, it was very more populated than the southern section. Could be different for you guys, but that's how it was for me. So I did recommend this as a hotspot. Another reason being why I'm recommending as a hotspot, not only because they have a bunch of zones there, but you have 2 outposts on either side of the marsh, so you can just basically walk in there and find out where all your caribou are at pretty easily. And I have quite a few groups in there, to be quite honest, but I do recommend checking this one out. You're going to want to comb through this area quite a few times, but anyways, we're going to move up north to these double lakes here. I marked these as a hotspot mostly because I did have quite a few groups of caribou. It's also pretty popular for grizzly. But as you guys can see here, I have about 5 zones of caribou on the right side, and then we have about, should be 2 or 3 over here, which I do. I have 3 zones over here. So I marked this as hotspot. These lakes are pretty big, so they do house quite a few locations. And let me just make sure we're going the right way here. And this is the hotspot we're going to today. This is the last final hotspot that I have marked on the map here. This one has quite a few zones. We have 1 here. We are going to have to go through a bunch of grizzlies as well. We have 2, we have 3, we have 4. We have 5, 6, 7, and we have about 7 zones of this lake. So that's why I marked this as the hotspot. This is what I'm showcasing this day. We have just quite a few zones for caribou here, so I highly recommend checking this lake out as well. And the one to the left of it as well has caribou, which we have about 2 or 3 zones. We have about 3 zones. And then down here we have the final 2 lakes where caribou can reside. This tiny one right here and this bigger one off to the left. Now I was going to mark this as a hotspot, but there's honestly just not a lot of caribou here, and they should be all on this right side. I have about 3 zones, but 2 of those are singles. So you could have a different zone group here, like several large groups, but I only have 2 singles and a group there. So we're going to actually exit out of our map here, just so we can showcase the zone for you guys before we head to the lodge for the weapon recommendations. So we're going to come down here. Let me see. Where's my binoculars at? Alright, so we might see a few singles, which we just got a new zone for a single. I was killing quite a few caribou, and if you guys have not seen my recent episode, I highly recommend checking out. I bagged a leucistic level 4 gold caribou with a double barrel shotgun kill from over 164 yards. It was pretty cool. Also got trolled in that video. But as we come down here, you guys can see more caribou. We don't have any decent level 4s floating around here, do we? Does not look that way. But pretty much, you're just going to want to come over to this lake and just explore it and see what you can see. It's just a pretty massive lake, to be quite honest with you. And then there's that caribou there. We have grizzlies there. But if we come over here, There should be a dry section of land that actually bridged between this, so it'll be easy to access. Maybe put a tent down in here or further back or in between these two lakes to access them. But we're going to come over here just so I can showcase this. We have another caribou right here as well. He's just looking at me now. And then we should see some more. But you guys get the gist. This lake is pretty decent. We probably won't be able to see them from the other side because of render distance. But these guys already checked all my zones here. I have quite a few, so I highly recommend checking this out. So we're going to head back to the outpost where I'm going to do the weapon recommendation section. So I will see you guys there in just a moment. Alrighty folks, so here we are back at the outpost. Before we begin, I want to mention quickly 3 things. First things first is, I'm only going to be covering rifles, handguns, and shotguns. I'll not be covering bows because I'm not a bow expert, so I'll leave that to professionals. Secondly, these are just my personal recommendations and favorites. I always say go out there and explore and see what suits you and what you enjoy playing with. And then lastly, I'll be mentioning whatever DLCs weapons come from in case you want to pick them up for yourself. So, let's get right to it with our first rifle today, the M1 Grand or Garand, however you want to pronounce it. This is an iconic World War II rifle. You have 5 rounds in the magazine for this game, and it is solid. It's chambered in 30-06, and its recoil is pretty decent, and I highly recommend semi-autos when it comes to dealing with Caribou, just mostly because you're dealing with multiple level 4s and singles probably mixed in together within certain groups, so I do prefer using semis more than bolt actions. However, if you do want a bolt action, I will give you a quick recommendation right after I tell you guys what DLC this weapon comes from, and you can find this bad boy in the Smokin' Barrels Pack DLC. So let me scroll up here to the bolt action version of the 30-06 here. We're going to just scroll right up here to the Eckers 30-06. I feel like this rifle does not get enough love, so I kind of want to showcase it here. You have 4 rounds in there. It's one of my favorite bolt actions. I think it's pretty solid, but not a lot of people use it from what I've seen, but you can find it in Weapon Pack 3. Moving on to our second rifle of the day, which is right below the M1 here. We have the Model 1894 Chamber in 44. This thing is very solid. You have 6 rounds in there, so you can deal with multiple Caribou relatively easy. But the reason why I'm recommending it is because the penetration on the 44 is absurd. Obviously, with these animals, or any animal in the game, can stand at an awkward stance where it makes a shot pretty hard to hit. But this thing solves it. It's basically just overpen and everything. You're definitely going to hit lungs no matter where you hit it on a Caribou. They have small frames, so this thing will definitely do the job. I highly recommend it, and you can find it in the Ambusher Pack DLC. Moving on to our third and final rifle of the day, we will see it right here. The Zarza 10-308 is a very solid choice. You have 5 rounds in there, chambered in 308. It's just a very phenomenal rifle, as I said, when it comes to dealing with these Caribou. They're just in large groups. This rifle will definitely do the job. But for those who prefer a bolt action option, I will tell you that in just a second. You can find the Zarza 308 here in the Modern Rifle Pack, which is a very solid pack, which I highly recommend picking up. So we're going to scroll up here to the bolt action version. We should see it any second now, right here, the Olsen Model 23308. This is one of my favorite bolt actions in the game. It's very solid to use. I enjoy it a lot, and you can find this in the Hunter Power Pack DLC. Moving on to handguns, we're going to talk about my favorite handgun in the game. We're going to scroll down here. The 4570 Jerberg Superior. It's chambered at 4570. It covers classes 4 through 9. It's very solid. Of course, you only got 1 shot in the tube. However, you can put a rifle scope on it, which gives it the greatest advantage compared to all the other pistols in the game. I highly recommend it. It's very fun to use if you want to level up your pistols, and you can find it in the High Caliber Pack DLC. Moving on to shotguns, we're going to scroll down here to the Strandberg 10-gauge Executive. Now, this is probably the best shotgun in the game. It has 4 rounds in the tube, it's semi-auto, and you can plow through these Caribou if you put some slugs on this thing and put a good shotgun scope on it. It definitely does the job. There's certain areas on this map with some dense foliage that you can get some extreme use out of this thing, so I highly recommend it, and you can find it in the High Caliber Weapon Pack DLC. So that's pretty much it for the weapon recommendations, so I'm going to head over to the animal profile, so I'll see you guys there in just a second. And here we are, folks, at the end of today's video. Before I let you guys go, I'm going to do a quick animal profile breakdown. Starting on the left-hand side, we have all of our basic Caribou information. We have our class, difficulty, silver, gold, diamond threshold. We have our weight from least to greatest in kilograms and in pounds. We have our fur types covering common, rare, and very rare. Moving on to the center map, we pretty much covered all that information at the beginning of today's video. Moving on, top right-hand corner, we have our time zones nice and organized for you. And then below that, we have those ammo chart for those full integrity kills. So that pretty much does it for today's video, folks. If this guide helps you, please drop a like. It really helps out the channel. And with that out of the way, I hope you guys have a very wonderful day. Happy hunting, good luck, and I will see you guys in the next one.